Z06 for 2 years now, which is a bit crazy to me. Time certainly does fly. So today we're pulling a car out. We need to get it washed because it's about time to park it away for the winter, and we will do a 2-year ownership update video talking about some of my thoughts about what it's been like to own the car, overall costs so far, what I love and dislike about owning a C8 Z06. So what has it been like to own the Z06? As I have gone on extensively in all of my previous videos involving this car, it's been fantastic. I do absolutely love this car. It delivers the drama and excitement at all moments, whether you're driving around normally, whether you're on the track, on a fun back road, doing highway blast, revving this thing out to redline. It's just an exciting car. And it is what made me become a Corvette owner. Prior to this, I always thought Corvettes were cool. I respected it as an iconic American sports car. C6, Z06, ZR1, Grand Sports, the C7, Z06, ZR1. They were cool, but they weren't for me. They didn't speak to me in a way that goes, I want to buy one of these cars. The C7, Z06 was stupendously quick. The ZR1 was badass, but I never saw myself buying one. But when it went mid-engine, and then when it introduced this, it wasn't just the mid-engine, it was mid-engine plus the flat plane crank V8 that had me entirely sold on the car. As soon as I had a ride-along and 2 pre-production cars, passenger seat with some of the development engineers, I got out of these camouflage cars and was like, when it's time, the order banks are open, let me know what I need to do to buy one of these. And I went through with it. I hounded the Corvette team. I begged them at every turn, like, I want to own one. I want one of these cars. This is such a ridiculous machine. And ended up getting this car back in 2022, December of 22. It's a 23 model year. This is, I got very lucky, a very early allocation. This is VIN number 38 that came off the line. So super early build, and I got to configure it the way I wanted. I spec'd this car exactly how I wanted it. That being said, it did come in at a little bit higher of a price than I originally expected. So I went with 3LZ Z07 pack with the carbon aero. I did not do carbon fiber wheels because I knew I was going to get aftermarket wheels at some point. And I had a car with carbon wheels from the factory, my Shelby GT350R. I never drove on the carbon fiber wheels, but I got to do the color, all the things. Got my cool little plaque here for museum delivery. It's been a very, very enjoyable experience owning this Z06. I love it. I love it so much, and I always tell people, I cannot give a car a higher compliment, a higher endorsement than spending my own money on it. A lot of these cars I get to drive are press car demos, or a friend lets me drive it, or a dealership, right? And I get to experience a huge range of cars, and I am absolutely very spoiled, right? I've gotten to spend a week with an E-Ray, I get an Escalade V, I get BMWs, I get a lot of different cars. But for me to spend my money on it, that means I really love it. And the second thing is, for me to sell 2 other cars that I also really, really like and keep this one is another really high endorsement. So for those who may not be familiar, last year I had a Shelby GT350R, love that car, a Audi R8 RWS, the V10 rear-wheel drive Gen 2, and this car. And I ended up selling the Shelby, which I regret, and the R8, which I don't regret, and keeping this car because to me it was the most special. It checks all the boxes you would want of a sports car, supercar in this segment and price range. Let's take a quick break from the video to talk about today's video sponsor, Quadlock. They have a full ecosystem of products to keep your phone securely and conveniently mounted in all sorts of situations. Whether you're in the car, on a bike, off-road, or at your desk, I have the MagSafe case on my iPhone. It supports wireless charging. When I get back to my desk at home, I simply just stick it to the wireless charger, or you can mount it in your vehicle in all sorts of different ways. So the mechanism is really secure. I'm going to demonstrate it here on this selfie stick. You line up the tabs on the back, and then you just simply twist it, and it makes this really satisfying clicking sound. So you know it's locked into place. The cases are also really protective. I've dropped my phone a couple times recently, and it is totally fine. You can also customize it. I've got the blue ring here on the back. They also have action camera mounts, which is what I use to mount my GoPros when I'm filming in the car, whether it's inside the car on the windshield or putting a camera on the rear bumper to get exhaust clips. So we'll insert a epic Z06 exhaust sound clip right now. In the car, you have all sorts of different options to mount your phone, whether it's a air vent mount, you have a suction cup mount, and they have more permanent adhesive mounts to put your phone in the vehicle. Use my link below. It will apply a 10% discount code EddieX10 for 10% off your Quadlock order. Now back to the Z06 video. Really special engine. Absolutely. The LT6 is a marvel. It's an engine that I did not expect Chevy to do. When obviously, after they launched the Stingray, we're like, we'll get a Z06, there'll be a Z01, and so forth. I was like, they'll probably maybe boost the LT2, right? The 6.2 V8, or I did not expect them to develop a naturally aspirated flat plane crank V8, benchmarking the Ferrari 458 cars that are 2 to 3 times the price point. This thing revs to well over 8,000 RPM. It's the most powerful, naturally aspirated V8 ever. It beats the SLS Black Series, which held the record for most powerful production NA V8. And the SLS Black Series is also a ridiculous car that costs a lot of money. I love that thing too. So like, this is just a special engine. The noises, the way it delivers power, the capability. I love that engine. You still have the tech creature comforts. That's something else. I chose this over the R8 because I have heated, cooled seats. I've got digital rearview mirror, front lift, all these camera views. It's got so many features that the R8 just was missing. And okay, you may be like, well, it's an R8 V10. Why do you care about blind spot warning? When you live with the cars day to day, it is helpful. Mid-engine cars, low sports cars, they have huge blind spots. Like, you have to be very careful with Lamborghini Huracans, or even worse. So some of these things that are just like a cherry on top for the Z06. The capability. I mean, this thing on track is just a beast. We'll talk about Spring Mountain in a bit, but like, I've gotten to track this at Pit Race and Spring Mountain for the owner school. That's where it belongs and lives. Honestly, it's a little bit of shame to drive this car just on the road with limited curvy back roads we have out here. But on the track, it is a beast. Track testing showed it as fast or faster than cars. Again, double the price point. Porsche GT3s, McLarens, Lamborghinis, and so forth. So the performance is absolutely undeniable. I love the looks. I love the sound. Everything about this car has just put a huge smile on my face. And you guys know that. I've gone on at length talking about how amazing this car is and how much I love it. I think I've sold probably at least half a dozen people on this car. People have reached out to me and goes, I bought a Z06 because of you, or had a friend who picked up one. It just does that for a sports car enthusiast. It's that special. It's just that amazing. So let's talk about some of the cost, right? So it's been 2 years now. How much has it cost me to own this car? Well, my MSRP was right just around $150,000, like 151, something like that. And at the time, I was able to get this for technically under MSRP. It was like $25 under MSRP. It was a joke between myself and my dealer friend when we were ordering it, because at that moment, Z06s were trading for minimum 50 grand. Over 100 to 150 was honestly the norm for these. So 100K over, call it a $250,000 car. And I was like, I don't think it's that much, right? At that point, you're butting up into another echelon of car that has maybe a little more exotic appeal and prestige. But at 150K, I was like, yes, this is a phenomenal car. So I bought it for 151 at MSRP, which was great at the time. Now, you pay sales tax, and that's, I think it was like 7% sales tax because Illinois. So you tack that on, so 160 something out the door to buy the Z06. Now we get to the other ownership costs that have accrued over my time with the car. For context, I've unfortunately only put 6,000 miles on a car. I wish I had driven it more, but 6,000 miles, all I've managed in 2 years' time. Stuff that I would highly recommend. Paint protection film. I bought this car brand new, first time ordering a car of this magnitude new, and I usually do partial PPF, just the front end to protect against rock chips. This car is like brand new, it's got delivery miles, I'm doing the entire car. So a full car PPF, about $10,000. It depends where you go. You'll see some that are cheaper, some that might be more expensive. It depends on the shop, the material, and ultimately what level of quality you want to get. I went to New Layer Customs in Michigan. They do a fantastic job. I was so happy. They actually had to custom do the entire rear bumper because this car was so new. There was no template available from Expel when this car was being PPF. So $10,000. Again, you don't have to spend that much, but talking about my ownership costs, I'm also going to round all the numbers to the nearest big number just to make it more easy, because I can't remember like down the last penny. Like, you don't need to know that anyways. I did put new wheels and tires on it almost immediately. The tires part, if you get Z07 pack, it comes on Michelin Cup 2R tires, which are a track tire. It's like essentially a track slick. It doesn't do well in the real world from two factors. One, it wears very quickly because again, it's low tread wear. It's supposed to be a sticky track tire. But two, and more importantly, when it gets cold or rainy, they're not great. They will hydroplane at anything above probably like 55 miles an hour, and that's just not a scale thing, not a car thing. It's just the way the tire is. They look like they're almost bald from the factory because they're like track tires, right? Cup 2R tires are very, very aggressive. If it gets cold, they get too hard. This is to illustrate the point. The regular PS4S tires that the non-Z07 comes on have a tire pressure of, I believe, is it 30? They have you go 5 PSI higher on the Cup 2R, even though they're all the same size, the vehicle's the same weight, everything, simply to get a little bit more crowning of the tire, so you have a little bit better like water rejection. It's just things that illustrate how extreme the Cup 2R tire is. So I went to Michelin PS4S tires immediately and did get a set of aftermarket Vossen wheels. These forged wheels are pretty expensive. I won't quote the wheel cost. The retail price on these was like $12,000, but you can obviously have a whole range of different kinds of wheels. So that is an optional cost. I could have run PS4S tires on my stock wheels, but PS4S tires, cheaper than Cup 2R, still expensive. They're $345s out back, 21-inch, so they're like $600-700 per tire. So a full set of tires was, I think, $2,500. That's just reality, right? It's going to be expensive to put tires on this kind of car. That is absolutely the reality. I did have a nail in the, I think the passenger side rear tire, and luckily I purchased through Tire Rack and they had the road hazard thing, so I sent the pictures, I purchased a new one and did get that reimbursed up to an extent though, because like installation costs I think I had to cover, and there was like a delta in price. They'll reimburse you from what you bought the tire at, but the tire had gone up in price, so a little bit out of pocket, but better than buying an all new PS4S, because that would have been $700. So it was already like, oh my gosh. So tires, PPF, I did put wheels on it. You pay for sales tax. Maintenance. So 2 years, 6,000 miles. That's not that many miles. I know people who have put 20,000 plus miles on their Z06s already. I did an oil change after the first year, which Chevy covers. So they'll cover your first service. And the one just recently was oil change, and I did the transmission fluid flush and the transmission filter. Oil change, I was able to get it for under $200, so we'll round to $200 for a full synthetic oil change, and the trans filter and fluid was $440, but I've seen that number reported at a much wider range. Some people are in the, again, $400-ish range. I think I'm on the bottom end in terms of the price I got. Some people have been quoted $600-700, so that seems to vary from dealer to dealer, so that may be something you want to shop around, but the proper way to do that, which is not the way I did it, dumb Eddie here, you should pay for the first service out of pocket and then use the one that Chevy will cover to do the oil change and transmission fluid service combined, because then Chevrolet will cover it for you. So I believe that's the smart way to do it. I did not do it that way. So there's costs of maintenance. So that's it. I haven't had anything additional cost in terms of maintenance. Brakes are still fine. I make a carbon ceramic brakes on it. That should last, knock on leather / carbon fiber, quite a long time. Now, the true out-of-pocket cost for me actually ended up being zero because when the Z06 first came out, remember I was talking about that crazy markup and market condition? People were buying these to flip, and in an effort to try to curb that, Chevrolet employed a stick and carrot approach. The stick was, if you sell the car before 6 months and flip it for a profit, A, the car will not have a warranty anymore. B, you're never going to be allowed to get a special GM vehicle again, whether it's a Hummer, a Corvette, a ZR1, a Cadillac Blackwing. So that was supposed to be the punishment side. The carrot, the reward side, was you keep the car for 6 months, you get 500,000 General Motors reward points, the GM reward points. So I got 500,000 points, which is worth like $5,000. You can use that on service, accessories. You can put it towards the purchase of another car, extended service plans, and so forth. So I use those to pay for service, and then you get miscellaneous other points too for doing service. So it's interesting. I spent points to pay for the service, but I got a little bit of it back because I did service at a dealership. I may spend the rest of my points. I still have 480,000 left for either extending the warranty. I might do that because I plan on keeping this car long term. Or if I were to buy another car, if I wanted to buy a Cadillac Blackwing, I could apply those points there. Now, I realize I'm very lucky that I got that early on, because I don't think they continued that for the 24, 25 model years. It was a first model year thing. But the flip side of that is the fact that it's because prices have come back down to normal. You can get a Z06 now. They don't have the crazy constraint. We don't have people flipping them for a profit anymore. So GM doesn't need to employ that approach anymore. So therefore, yeah, you're not going to get the points, because you can get $5,000 off MSRP without a problem these days. So those are some of the ownership costs I have faced so far. The big one, which I can already see people talking about as well, depreciation. That's the reality of owning most cars. Very, very rarely do you have a car that will make you money. Market conditions did create this artificial bubble for a little bit where you could just like buy anything and make money on it. It was like insane. And I was like, there's no way that's sustainable. It's absolutely true of this car. When I got the car early, I probably could have flipped it for $100,000. But that wasn't worth it to me. I wanted to keep this car, enjoy it. I got it because as an enthusiast, I wanted to own this car. I had no interest in selling it whatsoever. On the flip side, now that we're 2 years later, depreciation is absolutely a thing. If I went to trade this car in, straight dealer trade-in, probably cost me, I don't know, 10, 15 grand minimum. But I plan on keeping the car. And if you're never going to sell it, what does the value really matter? It's good to have some value in a car, right? I don't want this depreciation to $100,000 and be like, it might still happen, but I want to keep the car. You can get Z06s for MSRP or under now all day long, no problem. Constraints seem to be have lifted. You can get Z07 pack. There's vehicles sitting on dealer showroom floors. The dealership I went to, LaFontaine, Plymouth, Chevrolet, for service, they had a Z06 on the ground, 3LZ convertible, 145 sticker. They're willing to sell it for like $7,000 to $9,000 under MSRP. Fantastic deal. Oh my gosh, if you're considering one of these or you wanted to get one when they first came out, do it. So if I were to sell the car, trade it in, that would be considered a cost, right? I always look at overall length of owning the car. How much can you afford to buy? How much can you afford to lose? Because if you buy the car for $150 and you sell it for $150, free car, right? Other maintenance stuff included. But if you buy for $150 and sell it for $100, then you're like, ouch, that hurts a lot more, right? That's why I would avoid buying high depreciating vehicles at all lengths. So that's, I think, all the main costs. The other things that I spent money on this car were totally voluntary. It was a little bit alarming. The first year of owning this car, I spent, actually, it got shipped more miles in a truck than I drove it. That was a little bit embarrassing. It's because I took delivery in December. We're in December now, right? That's probably my last drive of the year. It's winter. It's going to go in the garage. I'm not driving this in the snow. But I took delivery in December. And I was like, I need to get this car through break-in and do some content with it, right? Because I got such an early car, and I can't do that in Michigan. And I was living in Chicago at the time. So I took delivery at Bowling Green, and then I shipped the car to Detroit to get PPF at New Layer. And then from Detroit, it got shipped straight to LA, California. So I never actually saw the car after I took delivery. I was in Chicago this whole time. So I got shipped out there, and then I flew out to California, drove it for a little bit, drove it over to Scottsdale, got it through break-in, and it spent its entire first winter in Scottsdale. And then it got shipped from Scottsdale back to Chicago once it warmed up in Chicago, and in Chicago it shipped it to Michigan. So it was in a truck a lot, right? And that costs money, right? But that's fully my thing. I don't send the car to Arizona every winter for it to, take, it's not like a snowbird car, right? I can't afford that. That was a one-time thing. It was unique to my situation. Otherwise, again, knock on carbon fiber, it's been good. It's a new car. I mean, again, not that many miles, so I haven't worn through tires yet. PPF is still fine, and service has been very reasonably cost. You buy a McLaren, a Lamborghini, or whatever, Ferrari, your service cost, actually not Ferrari because they have it included, but a lot of those other supercars, higher end cars, they're going to cost a lot to service every year. So there we go. We've covered what it's been like, amazing, the ownership costs, calm down, K-Band. I already covered some of the pros, the things that I absolutely love. So let's talk about some of the things that maybe are less than ideal that you may want to consider in your mind if you're thinking about buying and owning a Z06. The interior is nice, the materials are great, the tech is great, all these features that I really like. But the one thing I will say a drawback, it is a little bit on the more cramped feeling side, right? I'm a bigger guy, I'm 6'3", 200 something pounds, and the space of the cabin does not feel quite as open as something like a Audi R8. My R8 felt a little bit more open. I had the partial shelf behind the seat, so it seemed like a little more spacious of a vehicle. Porsche 911s, you go for like a 991 or 992 Turbo S, GT3. The packaging on the inside feels much more open. A little bit is the Great Wall of Corvette buttons, the seating position, and just the way the consoles sit and everything. It's not quite as open and large feeling of a interior vehicle. But that being said, at 6'3", if I was 6'5", probably I would still fit in this, which is heck of a lot better than a Lamborghini Huracan. I don't fit very comfortably in the Huracan, kind of to lean my seat all the way back. The efficiency is pretty abysmal. I feel petty complaining about that, but it's a reality that you should know. I averaged between 12 to 14 mpg on most drives. If you start going hard, it's going to be obviously way worse than that. But even in the best case scenario, being as efficient as possible on the freeway, 75, 77 miles an hour, cruise control sitting there, I never saw over like 18 to 19 mpg. Now, gearing and the big wing are definitely factors there. With the Z07 pack, it actively lowers your fuel economy ratings along with your top speed, because this is supposed to be the handling track pack for taking turns, right? But it's just something to know. It doesn't have a very big fuel tank, so I'm at the gas station a lot, but miles per gallon are what matters. Ultimately, if you are worried about the fuel economy buying this car, maybe you should buy the E-Ray, but it's not, again, that shouldn't be the primary concern. It is more harsh and aggressive feeling than a Stingray or the E-Ray. That's part of the racy feel, and you have to want that. I have a lot of people asking me, Z06 or E-Ray, what would you do? Z06 or E-Ray, how do they compare? And I was actually just speaking to somebody about it. He ended up going for the Z06, so I talked him into Z06 over to the E-Ray. E-Ray is grand touring, daily drivable supercar feel. This is track focused and a hard edge feel. Totally different disparate. I don't really like try to cross shop them because it's totally different. It's kind of like, I always make the analogy, 911 Turbo S or the GT3. Very, very different feels. The reality is a lot of times people are shopping for those, they buy both, right? Porsche clients are rich. So they go, yeah, I'll take a Turbo S for day to day, and I'll take the GT3 for the track. If you can't do that, you got to look at your use case. How often are you tracking the car? What do you enjoy about a sports car? Is it going to be your daily driver? You can daily drive a Z06. Just be aware that it may be a little more harsh. The ride, some of the noises, the feel. The E-Ray is a beast of a car, and it's stupendously torquey. Rear world wise, it's crazy quick. It's comfortable, a little more quiet and more settled, right? Just like the Stingray, that it's more closely related to with the same LT2. So that's kind of another maybe slight downside, or more just reality that you need to be aware of with the Z06. We already talked about depreciation. That's just a fact. I don't really view that as a downside per se. Nobody should have gone into buying this car thinking it was going to stay at $180,000 to $250,000 for the rest of its life, right? That's just not a thing, right? There was always going to be a ZR1, which has been announced, rumors of a Zora, and we'll eventually get to the C9 generation, right? Just like the previous gens. Only the really, really rare ones hold value and go up. Typically been the ZR1 models because they're the top of the pile. The C6 ZR1, the C7 ZR1, and then you go way historic Corvettes. So I knew that going into this car, so don't try to buy one these days to make money. But again, flip side, you can get one for a nice discount off of MSRP, whether new or used. I miss driving this car. I've been a couple weeks traveling, and this is the last time I'll probably drive it this year, which is always sad. Woohoo! Some other considerations on what has been like to own for 2 years. It still puts a huge smile on my face every day. And the friends who have bought one or driven one, they understand and they concur. It's the engine that makes it so special. And I think the Z06 will remain special in the lineup. Doesn't matter if market value is reflected or not, it will still be a special experience because the ZR1 is insane, right? Like the power output, over 1,000 horsepower, 233 mile an hour top speed, twin turbo V8 flat plane crank. It's going to be crazy, but boosted. Sure, it has more power, but every time you boost a car, it doesn't have quite the same natural feel. A really good analogy would be looking at GT3 RS versus GT2 RS. Ferrari 458 versus Ferrari 488. And it'll be interesting to see what happens with Huracans and the new Lamborghini Temerario, which is a twin-turbo V8 now. Right, so we're moving away from naturally aspirated. So ZR1, and if the Zora comes, hybridized ZR1, they're going to be boosted. So this will remain the only naturally aspirated flat plane crank, which makes it a bit special. There's still a subset of enthusiasts that love vehicles like the GT3, the Ferrari 458. I remember a moment in time, it may still be true, I haven't checked recently, where 458 values were higher than 488 values, which typically is not the norm because people like the newest, greatest Ferrari. So that's some thoughts on the hierarchy of Corvette going forward. Yes. My personal plans on my Z06, keep it. I want to keep this car as long as I possibly can. And I understand that can be a little bit of a naive statement. I told myself my Shelby GT350R was going to be a forever car. I ended up not driving it much, so I sold it, and I deeply regret that. So I don't want to do that with this car. Even if I'm not driving as much as I wish I could, I'm going to keep it. It's the first time I was able to order a car of this magnitude brand new. This is built to my spec, my configuration. My R8s were used, or not, yeah, they were used cars. The Shelby was a used car. My Boss 302, the Audi RS7, and so forth. Those were all used cars, which meant I got to buy them for a lot cheaper than MSRP. But kind of, this is special because it's mine. It's for me. The experience is truly, truly special. I can say that with full confidence. I have a friend who has a P1 low baller GTR, and he still likes a Z06 too, right? Like, that's pretty high praise. All right, my friend John, Huracan Serato, he's had GT3 RS, GT Black Series. He just got his Z06, and he's like, this is pretty awesome too. So that's why I want to keep this car for as long as I can. 2 years, more and more going forward. Now, considerations with that. One, I think I will want to extend the warranty. It is still a high-strung, naturally aspirated kind of race type engine, and just like the Voodoo 5.2 flat plane crank, it's not going to be as solid, reliable, robust as a 6.2 probably, right? The 6.2 has been around forever, and everything from the Stingray to the E-Ray to other platforms, the C7s and so forth with the LT1. You get what I mean. So I always wait for the vehicle to hit 100 degrees Fahrenheit oil before I even start moving it, right? Make sure it warms up, I treat it well, regular service and so forth. You don't beat on it mercilessly. So you take care of a car, it'll take care of you. Especially true of more higher end enthusiast cars like this. Otherwise, I just want to have this car in my garage. It makes me happy. It makes amazing noises. Mod-wise, I don't typically modify cars super extensively. Usually it's just like wheels, tires, maybe a little aesthetic stuff. So this one's got the wheels on it, the Vossen Forge wheels, which I still love the way they look. A little bit more aggressive offset. I don't want to lower the car. The road's stuck here, and I don't like messing with OEM suspension. And yeah, it may look better, absolutely. I will not deny it looks cooler, but for me, it's function over form to an extent. So I don't plan on lowering the car. I have an Aventuri intake on it. I did play around the idea of doing exhaust. It sounds so good in race mode. It's already so loud, and the tone is perfect, I think. There's sometimes I'm like, maybe a little bit more. Then I remember my R8 got a little bit obnoxiously loud. Like, there's no way to be sneaky in that car. So I'm kind of still undetermined on that, but I do have the Aventuri intake, and that's pretty much it. Final goal, I just want to put more miles on it. I want to drive this car more. Hopefully my schedule in life allows for me to drive it more. I would love to do a road trip out west. I've thought about this for years, got on a bike, and going out west to all the national parks and taking it to California, hitting the canyons in Malibu, visiting friends again in Arizona. I think that would be a lot of fun, and just not worry about the miles. As long as I maintain it, drive it, who cares, right? Yeah, it's been 2 years of smiles. Not enough miles. That rhymed. Otherwise, the Z06 has been phenomenal. I hope to keep it around for as long as I can. I hope you guys enjoyed this rather free-form video. Just a brain dump. I've been wanting to do this for a while because I was like, I'm reaching 2 years of ownership. I should do an update talking about what it's been like. If you want a Z06, do it. The deals are there to be had, and I promise you, you will enjoy this car. It will put a massive smile on your face. Oh yeah. And I want to talk about some of the other cool perks. One of the biggest ones, this is only applicable when you buy it new, but you get to do the Corvette Owner School at Spring Mountain, Ron Fellows. Wow, was that a lot of fun. You know, it's always nice to get to track somebody else's car when you don't have to pay for tires and brakes and so forth. Obviously, you need to be careful of the car. There's like waivers and insurance and deductibles and everything. But heading out to Spring Mountain, that facility is amazing outside of Las Vegas. The track complex is epic. The instructors are great. The format they have is awesome. You get to explore and learn the limits of the car, get better as a driver, more seat time, and just see what the car can do. And my favorite part, obviously, was going to be the lead follow open track sessions, right? Get to go and go and go and get faster and faster in the car. It was just a blast. So if you buy a Corvette new, 1,000,000% make sure you sign up for that, because it gets heavily subsidized. I think it was like $1,000 you have to pay for to go do it, right? Because the rest of it gets covered by General Motors. They also have it for Cadillac Blackwings. Like, it's such a cool program. So that probably is one of my favorite parts of getting the Z06 new. I also did museum delivery, which does make it feel special. Going on to Bowling Green, it's really close to the factory. They bring it over there, you get this cool little kind of ceremony where they have it in the main boulevard. You get a tour of the museum, and you get to take delivery of your new car there. You can do a special little plaque too. So museum delivery, I think, is a lot of fun. I would also highly recommend that, especially if it's like your first Corvette. 10 out of 10 would do that again. And 10 out of 10 will do that again. So I want to keep this car. Planning on an idea of maybe trying to get a ZR1, but I would not replace this with the ZR1. I vote for this over E-Ray, Z06 over E-Ray for my personal preference and usage. If you have questions about what it's been like, things that I may not have covered, you want to specifically ask me about your situation of, should I get a Stingray? Should I get an E-Ray? Should I get a Z06? Should I get a GT3? Should I buy whatever, right? Feel free to message me, comment below, email, Instagram, whatever. Absolutely have loved this car. I could go on for another half hour talking about how amazing the Z06 is, but I think you guys have heard enough. So with that, we shall conclude this video. 2-year ownership of Z06. It's about to get a wash now. I'm about to get to out of office garage, get this thing cleaned up on the trickle charger under the car cover, and fingers crossed I get to drive it more next year. Thanks for watching, guys. Check out some of the other Z06 and Corvette videos. Bye.